Ladies and gentlemen, strap in, hold tight, and brace yourself like you're about to take a Harley Race headbutt, because we're diving face first into the grudge-stuffed, smack-talk-slinging, bad-attitude-cooked top 5 wrestlers Harley Race couldn't stand. Let's get one thing straight from the jump. Harley Race didn't play. This man wasn't just a wrestler. He was a walking middle finger to soft hands and shiny boots. Harley came from a generation where a bad day didn't mean losing followers. It meant losing teeth. The man sounded like a bulldozer gargling moonshine and looked like the kind of guy who'd put a bounty on your head and cook you breakfast after. But behind that gravel-voiced, don't mess with me persona, there was a wrestling purist. Harley believed in the business the way a preacher believes in Sunday service. And woe unto thee who didn't respect the gospel of the mat. To Harley, wrestling was sacred. Real men, real bumps, real heat. You don't leap off a cage unless you mean it. You don't wear feathers unless you're fighting a damn ostrich. And if you're planning on bringing your fake tan, weak punches, or dollar store charisma into his territory, oh, baby, you'd better bring a gun, or at least a solid life insurance policy. Now, sure, Harley could work with almost anybody. He once said, I could wrestle a broom and make it look good. But here's the thing. There were some guys that not even Harley's patience or headlock could fix. Guys who rubbed him the wrong way. Guys who made his mustache twitch. Guys who didn't just get under his skin. They built a condo there and started collecting rent. And today, we're going to spill that tea like a drunk grandma at a family reunion. Let's start with the most stylish man to ever take a chop to the chest so hard it sounded like a car crash on I-95. That's right, Ric freaking Flair. The robe-wearing, Rolex-waving, jet-flying, kiss-stealing icon who made Harley Race contemplate if throat-chopping a co-worker was against NWA policy. Now here's the thing. Harley Race didn't hate Ric Flair because he was terrible. Oh no, he hated him because he was good. Too good. At being everything Harley Race wasn't. Harley was a Missouri man. Grit, grind, and a mustache that could sand wood. His idea of Flair was a clean pair of boots and a handshake so firm it'd give your soul a cramp. Ric Flair? That man came out glistening like a Vegas chandelier, shouting woo like he stubbed his toe on cocaine. The tension started when the NWA wanted to move on from Harley, who'd already held the NWA title like it was his baby mama's rent money, and put the belt on Flair. Harley wasn't impressed. Flair didn't scream tough guy to him, he screamed, somebody's aunt just bought a feather boa. Now picture this, Starrcade 83, Flair versus Race, title match. And here comes Harley with that salty, raspy voice backstage saying, this little bleached blonde bastard better not drop me on my head or I'm gonna slap the woo out of him. Real quote? Probably not. Accurate vibe? Absolutely. And Flair was nervous. See, Harley Race was the man back then. He once body-slammed Andre the Giant. He suplexed time itself. So when he finally passed the torch, or rather, begrudgingly dropped the strap to Flair, it wasn't with hugs and handshakes, it was with one eye roll and a mental note that said, this boy's got soft hands. Years later, Race mellowed out and admitted Flair was one of the greatest of all time. But back in the day, Flair could have walked into the locker room and Harley would have asked, what pageant you lose to end up here? Flair was the hotshot with the glitter and girls. Harley was the grizzled old-school outlaw who looked like he'd fight you for the last cigarette in a tornado. That ain't oil and water, that's nitro and napalm. Oh, you thought Harley Race disliked Ric Flair? Brother, wait till you hear about the time he tried to shoot Hulk Hogan. And I don't mean a wrestling shoot, I mean a literal firearm. Bang bang, lights out, Jimmy. So here's the setup. It's the early 80s, and Hulkamania is running wild like a toddler on pixie sticks. Vince McMahon is gobbling up territories like Pac-Man on steroids, and Hogan is his golden goose. But down in Missouri, in the NWA territory, Harley Race ain't having it. This is his turf, his locker room, his crowd. When Vince brought WWF to Kansas City for a show, right in Harley's backyard, Harley didn't just send a cease and desist. My man showed up to the building with a gun. Let me say that again. Hulk Hogan said Harley Race showed up with a Glock in Kansas City like he was auditioning for Scarface, The Wrastlin' Years. He puts that gun right in my face. He said, I should kill you for coming in and doing this. Hulk Hogan during his Wrestling Inc. interview. Now imagine that. Harley Race, 6'1", of beer, gristle, and cowboy boots, bursting into the building like the final boss in a Western. Meanwhile, Hogan's standing there with 24-inch pythons and suddenly realizing they ain't bulletproof. Eventually, Harley calmed down. He and Hogan even worked together in WWF later, with Harley donning a crown and calling himself the King. But that wasn't Harley kissing the ring. That was him trying not to murder somebody in catering. Let's be real. Race thought Hogan was a cartoon character. You can't slam your way through life, he probably thought. Where's your suplex game, Terry? To Harley, Hogan was a loud, leg-dropping, bandana-wearing sellout. To Harley's credit, Hogan was selling out. Just arenas. Still, Harley believed in wrestling as an art form. Hogan believed in ripping shirts and posing like he was constipated. Would they have made a great tag team? Only if it was called Beauty and the Beef. Now look, if wrestling in the 80s was a movie, Harley Race was Clint Eastwood with cauliflower ears. And Bruiser Brody? He was a Tasmanian devil on a cocaine bender. This dude would sprint to the ring swinging chains, yelling like he just escaped Arkham Asylum, and the fans loved it. But Harley Race? He ain't loved nothing about it. Harley Race liked his matches tight, crisp, and logical. Brody liked his matches like he liked his breakfast, unpredictable, chaotic, and usually ending with someone bleeding. To Harley, Brody was that kid in class who wouldn't stop talking during a fire drill. Dangerous, unteachable, and probably going to get someone hurt. The worst part? Brody no-sold Harley's signature pile driver in St. Louis. In Harley's house. That's like farting at someone's wedding and then asking for cake. To Race, that wasn't just unprofessional, it was blasphemy. And trust me, Harley didn't believe in a lot of things, but he believed in the pile driver. Brody could have been a legend by Harley's standards, but instead, he stayed a rogue. Unpredictable, sometimes brilliant, often maddening. Harley wasn't about that chaos. He wanted warriors, not wild cards. And Brody, he was like trying to wrestle a bar fight. He had the gift of gab and the belly of a buffet champion. Harley Race respected Dusty Rhodes the way a math teacher respects a class clown who somehow passes all the tests. Dusty was charismatic, larger than life, and booked himself like he was the second coming of Allie. But Harley? He saw it as booking by ego. Dusty could talk, Harley admitted. Hell, he could talk the ring into a nap, but his work didn't back it up. The polka dots? Don't even start. Harley said putting Dusty in polka dots was the one thing Vince McMahon ever got right. He thought Dusty made wrestling look cartoonish and campy. Two things Harley thought belonged in Sesame Street, not a wrestling ring. To Harley, Dusty was like a magician pulling flash out of his hat, while Harley was the carpenter building the damn stage. It was two different philosophies. Harley believed in grit, grind, and realism. Dusty believed in sizzle, pop, and pushing himself to the moon. They weren't enemies, but they damn sure weren't exchanging Christmas cards. He gave me a crown and took away the soul of wrestling. If Harley Race could sum up Vince McMahon in one sentence, it'd probably go something like, "That man smiled while burning the house down, and then charged me rent." Harley didn't just dislike Vince. He saw him as the enemy of everything wrestling used to stand for. Before Vince, there were territories. Respect, blood, and beer. After Vince, pyro, puppets, and gimmicks so weird you needed therapy just watching them. When Vince offered Harley a WWF deal in the mid-'80s, Harley took it reluctantly. But when they slapped a crown on him and made him say His Royal Highness, Harley looked like he'd swallowed a lemon dipped in shame. "I wore that crown," Harley said years later, "but I knew I looked like an idiot." He never forgave Vince for gutting the NWA and replacing it with neon lights and catchphrases. Harley wasn't about cartoon wrestling. He was about credibility. To him, Vince was like the kid who cheated at Monopoly and then bought the game company. Still, Harley played ball, because even the toughest wrestlers get bills. But deep down, he never stopped seeing Vince as the guy who took wrestling and turned it into sports entertainment. And Harley? He never entertained that. Harley Race was the human equivalent of a steel chair to the face, no nonsense, all impact, and built in a foundry run by angry dads. In this roast of a retrospective, we dive into 5 poor souls who earned Harley's eternal side-eye. Hulk Hogan was a walking cartoon character who couldn't wrestle a handshake. Ric Flair was what happens when cocaine wins a popularity contest. Bruiser Brody had all the professionalism of a pub bouncer on bath salts. Dusty Rhodes talked like he was giving a sermon during a stroke. And Vince McMahon? Harley saw him as the Antichrist in a $3,000 suit, like if capitalism did CrossFit and rewrote the Bible to include nipple tassels. This wasn't just Harley being grumpy. These were violations of the old-school code, where men bled for their payday and sold moves like rent was due. Race didn't want flash. He wanted fear. And if you brought silliness into his ring, you weren't just unworthy, you were in danger. Thanks for watching.